On this week's episode, we are discussing discrimination stories.
You've heard us share some of them before, but on this episode, we've got some spicier ones we have never actually shared on the pod before.
Ooh, so stick around. This episode of Rare with Flair is sponsored by Ira.
The holiday shopping rush is upon us. If you're planning on visiting Walmart, now is the perfect time to try Ira.
Walmart has just announced they are offering free access to Ira's visual interpreting service for customers at every location in the U.S., plus at walmart.com.
Looking for the shortest checkout line? Ira can help. Want to track down the perfect color-coordinated holiday decor? Ira can help. Looking for assistance when picking up an online order? You got it. Ira can help.
Just download the app in the Apple app or Google Play Store. Tap a button and connect with a professional visual interpreter. There's no limit on call length and you can call anytime.
Welcome to Rare with Flair.
The podcast where two best friends with the same rare disease are out here living our best lives, except when we're getting discriminated against. That's probably not our best
Not
life,
our best lives, but sharing about it. Maybe our best lives.
We're going to share about it. Maybe we're like taking back our power.
That's
I guess,
right. Absolutely.
Have you been?
I'm your host, Cassandra, and
oh my
I've
gosh,
been great.
And I'm your host, Casey.
I was like, wait a minute. I don't know if we introduced ourselves.
Listen, thank you. Thank you for always having my back. I do appreciate it.
This is what we do for each other.
This is what we do. I was trying to be sassy with a funny little intro and I messed it all up.
No, it was perfect. But just in case they're brand new here, they should know who we are.
It's very important. Our names are almost the same, but not.
Right. We're Case and Cass, and sometimes people call us Cass and Cass, which makes me laugh.
Yes, they do. They do. Like multiple people.
And it's funny just because your name doesn't have a cat sound.
No, it does not.
It's a K.
It's a K sound. You're right.
Anyway.
Yep, doesn't make much sense to me, but we digress.
How have you been, babe?
I have been good. I'm feeling a little under the weather, which is why my voice is a little funkity-funk. But you know what? It's okay. I think for this episode, this is more of a somber episode, so it's okay
Gotta keep
to feel
the
a little
down,
a little lower. Hey, keep your energy down. I don't care if you feel well.
We're tamping down that excitement today.
So, right, I was supposed to run a 5K this weekend. I have talked about my running journey on this pod, and unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen with this going on. However, I'm doing one in January, so all hope is not lost. Yay! And what have you been up to? You've been a busy bee.
I've been a busy girl. I still do my little tart business. I haven't talked about it in a while. I mostly do commissions now, and I had a friend ask me to commission a holiday party for her work, and she was like, there might be 70 to 80 people there. I was like, oh, great. So I made a bunch of tarts today, 7 big, pie-sized tarts. And honestly, it was so much work. And I had even spaced out the prep over the course of the past week. Yeah, over the course of the past, basically, week. And man, you guys, I'm so tired, but I'm really happy that I'm done with them. She's picking them up.
Yes. I just saw them over FaceTime, and they look absolutely stunning. Not only do they taste amazing, because I've tasted them, but they look great, too. And sometimes with baking, you get one or the other. But I really am not just buttering you up, not to make a baking pun, buttering you up. But they really do taste and look fantastic. So,
I appreciate that, friend.
I'm excited for this party and excited for you getting all this business. We love to see it.
I appreciate that. It feels extra fun to bake around the holidays.
Yes.
I kind of love being really busy and stressed baking during the holidays because that's what it feels like you should be doing,
It feels like a Hallmark movie, babe.
It does.
Lead into that main character energy.
Right. I know. Well, I'm also stressing because I'm trying to pack because I'm traveling this next week.
Yes. which is another very Hallmark Christmas thing, you know. I'm gonna bake. I'm gonna travel.
Bake and travel. It's That's the move. That's the vibe.
It's the main character situation. I mean, like, what main character doesn't travel at Christmas time?
I guess, right? Like, you gotta get
They're
stuck
like in the airport,
the small town in order to.
You're gonna get stuck in the airport. You're gonna fall in love.
Wow.
In the airport.
Sounds beautiful.
You never know.
Sounds beautiful.
You never know.
Let's do it.
Sounds festive. Let's do it. You never know.
Oh my gosh. Also again, thanks once again to our sponsor, Ira. Woohoo.
Yes.
So excited to do another sponsored ep. If you haven't checked them out, you definitely should. And they help support our show by sponsoring our episodes. If you want to support our show, check out the show notes and you can buy us a coffee, which is just a cute way of saying give us $1 if you want and help us run our show. Not at all required, but just something that I like to throw in, especially when we have a sponsor.
Absolutely. And many thanks to Ira again for working with us. And we hope you can take advantage of them over the holiday season with your shopping, your holiday shopping. Yeah, very exciting.
Wow. This app, man. And so
I think I'm going to get more personal on this app than I ever have in the whole 4.5 years of this show.
Which I, like, okay. A lot of the times that we have our episodes, we used to, like, pre-plan out topics far in advance. And to an extent, we still kind of do. We have some of our mainstay episodes we know we're always going to do during the year. But a lot of times, we have a running list. A lot of times, though, we decide to do an episode because something happens in our lives that I have to talk about this on the pod.
Correct.
A lot of the times, like, I feel like lately, it's because I've wanted to do something. Like, when we were talking about people saying weird things to us in public, it's because I just had that happen a lot, very consistently. I was like, I really need to talk about this. This time, it was Case. She was like, I need to talk about this.
Yes, absolutely. And so, you know, the topic, like we said, is discrimination. We are going to be telling some very personal stories and some very maybe disturbing, sad things we're going to be discussing. So we each have two pretty major, big stories to share.
The heavy hitters.
Yes. Well, sorry, we don't each have two. I have one and you have one, which equals two. So we have two stories that are heavy hitters. Before that, we're going to like ease in. We're going to dip our toe in, if you will, and share some that are not as heavy hitters. These are some we may have said in the past at some point or another over the last 4.5 years. And then the ones we're sharing at the end will be like our first time actually coming out about these stories.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I feel like mine I've made reference to, but I don't think I've ever told the whole story. So
Right. You have referenced it, but briefly. So we want the full story. And that's what we'll spend a lot of the time on in this episode. So definitely, you know, don't turn that dial. Definitely stay seated, stay listening, because we're getting to juicy stuff.
And if you do want to turn that dial, I would recommend either now, or if you don't want to forget to come back and listen to this one after this episode, give our Disneyland discrimination episode that we did earlier this year a listen. It's funny because we were like, well, we did one a few months back on that specific instance, and that was the whole episode. But like, you know, we're not going to rehash that one. We've got other things.
Oh, no.
That we have other things to say against.
Right, but we do highly recommend that one. That's a great discrimination story, if you ask me.
Yeah, and it was really like the episodes too. Like it
was fresh, and it really affected a lot of people. That's one of the ones I hear the most about with people talking to me about. They heard that episode. You know, that one hit home with people.
They were like, "Wow, that's so crazy!" Like people were outraged to us. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. So we appreciate that validation. Yep. Thank you.
Yep. Wow. You want to dip our toe in and share some just quicker, smaller, maybe moments of discrimination?
Go for it.
Should I go for it? Okay. So this one happened when I was living in New York City. One of my best friends, not Cass, I have to say that because Cass is my bestie, you know. But this was my other bestie. She was working for a temp agency, and she recommended that I work for it too. So if you're familiar with a temp agency, they like have different jobs they contact you to do. So this temp agency was contacting everybody to do a specific job. And when I say everybody, I mean like everybody I knew that worked at this agency was getting contacted to do this job except me. Like I was not getting emailed about it. And I was like, that's weird. Like, I don't know why they're not emailing me about it. So my friend was talking to the temp agent and said, hey, like, have you contacted Casey about this job? And she said, well, with her vision, I just don't really know what she can do. I just don't really think, And the reason why this is so disturbing to me is, first of all, it's not appropriate to be talking about my disability with my friend and not me.
Yeah, you like heard about this after it happened.
Yeah, my friend told me. I was not even in the room. I was not around. My friend told me about it. I think it's really wrong that they were discussing my disability behind my back with my friend. The second thing is they should have asked me. They should have contacted me and said, are you able to do this job? It was not something that was super visual, in fact. So they should have asked. And yeah, I just think that was really shady. And it's technically discrimination.
It is like not legal. Like you can't be doing that. You could.
It's not.
You could mount a case against someone for doing something like that.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's my first story. Yeah. And I think I have mentioned that in the past, but we're just going to get worse as we go along.
I know.
So.
Actually, you mentioned that one on the episode that we had done some time back about like employment and disclosing and discrimination. I think that's one of our most listened to episodes. Like it's up there in the top 5 or 10, which I feel like makes sense. Like that is a popular disability related topic a lot of people want to hear about and talk about. I was also going to share one from that episode too. So I work in accessibility, for those who don't know, which I work in digital accessibility. So I basically try and make sure that products that we produce, so I work for JP Morgan, but like the website and app and whatnot that we produce is accessible to our customers. So I knew that I wanted to work in that space starting in college. And it's because I saw a listing for an internship for, I don't even know if it's worth it to say the name of the company. Oh, because they're major, but whatever.
Yeah. Right. A major company.
Yeah, major company. Talking about an accessibility internship. And I was really excited because it was my freshman, maybe second semester or first semester of sophomore year or something. It was pretty early into my degree. And I didn't fully realize that was like a whole field on its own that you could go into. So I was super excited and I was like really ready to apply for this. And I, didn't have a whole lot of experience at the time, of course, but it was an internship, right? So hopefully they would be open to it. And I really I poured my heart into a cover letter and I edited my resume and I was so excited and I submitted an application for it and I got the immediate bounce back. Like I got the didn't even pass through the first filter email. And it's because one of the questions was, do you have a valid driver's license? And I said no, because I can't drive. I did end up trying to take this to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. EEOC. I know it's EEOC, but I forget what the C stands for. Anyway, government org in the U.S. that handles things like this. And because it did go somewhere, I did talk to someone at major company. I tried to mount my case that it could use transit and I didn't need to. And there are reasons why they claimed that they needed someone who could drive, but it was a really flimsy excuse. Them, though, being major company, were able to say things like this and still get away with it because they knew that me, college student, wasn't really going to be able to do anything about it.
Yeah.
But EEOC was basically like, sorry, I guess they have a good reason. So, you know, it was really unfortunate, and I did really feel discriminated against because I really, like, I wasn't even able to be considered, even after talking to someone, trying to mount a case, saying, like, this isn't right, I'm really capable, I just can't drive.
Yeah.
They still were like, no, sorry.
Yeah, and, like, two things that are disturbing to me about that. First of all, the job is inaccessibility.
Yes,
so it's like, that's
I know.
really disturbing. And then secondly, I have seen on a lot of job applications the driving thing come up or the license thing come up. And it disturbs me, though, that you couldn't even plead your case. Like, it automatically bounced you back.
Yes.
And you couldn't even, like, explain yourself, you know?
No,
like,
right? Like,
you know.
they didn't even let me into, say, an interview, and they could ask, so it seems you don't drive. Like, you know?
Right.
And so then I could explain and the many myriad of ways I have about it. But nope, they didn't want to hear about that, so.
Yep. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. Yeah. All right. My next shorter story is it's kind of just theater in general. I feel like with theater, I often had a lot of barriers with my nystagmus and with my vision and with all of that kind of stuff. And like one story in particular that I have told, I was in New York doing a workshop, and we had to read a piece of paper that was taped to the bottom of a camera for like a commercial workshop. I told the man running the workshop, hey, I can't read this. I'm going to have to hold the piece of paper because I can't read it that far away. Of course, he said, well, you don't have glasses. And then I tried to explain, and he said, well, listen, you can't do this if you can't read it. Like, that's not how this works. Like, you can't hold it. It's going to cover your face, and that's not how this works. And, I mean, I just said, well, I can't do it then. You know, like, I don't know what else you want me to do. And I went out to the hallway and cried, and it was fun. A lot of these involve crying.
I think all of these involve crying.
So that wasn't, like, discrimination in the legal sense. But theater was it was not my career, but it was, like, a path I was trying to take to that. So it is still kind of in the... Like, I felt like that was still kind of in the job area of, like, we're not going to allow you to do this kind of thing. So that guy was really rude and made me cry.
It's not like you're out here trying to become a blind surgeon, okay?
No.
There are some jobs that are extremely visual, and we know that. And we also know a lot of people with low vision that are still doing things in, say, healthcare. And like, that's great, and they can do it. So it's really extra frustrating when we know that something is not a very visual job. Like, you wouldn't have to do it that way.
Right.
It's not the only way that job can be done, I guess.
Right. And this was a workshop. It wasn't even something I was getting paid for. And it's like, if you've never done it a different way, then maybe try to be creative and find a different way. Like, maybe you've never had to do it a different way, but try to be accessible to other people, please. There was another, like, voiceover workshop I was wanting to do in New York, and I emailed them multiple times about accessibility and, like, could I get my script enlarged? And they just, like, never replied. They never even responded.
Really gross.
It was bad. I was like, okay, so I guess I'm just too tiring for them to deal with.
Wow.
I don't know, you know. Yeah, fun times.
Oh my gosh. And it's hard because, like, some of these, like, we either do try to fight back or and it doesn't go anywhere, or we don't fight back because we're just too dang tired.
Yeah, right.
Of being humiliated and discriminated against, and it's hard. So
Yep.
My next stories, all of them, including my big one, spoiler, are about service dogs. So
yay!
I love being a service dog handler. It comes with so much, though. It is a challenge, and in so many ways, I still continue to pursue it and choose it. But it is not for the faint of heart. It is just a lot. And so here's one. Last year, I I was applying for my home baking license through the Department of Agriculture. As you know, I am a home baker. I didn't mention that earlier. So, wow, how fun is that? Anyway, so in order to sell your baked goods at whatever, at a market or at a cafe, or even just to people, if they're paying money for your food, you should have a license. And it's like a whole process, but I had looked up the information beforehand, and you have to send an email. And I saw that one of the requirements was that you can't have a dog. And I, like, because, you know, pet hair is a food hazard, and I get that.
Yeah.
Like, I do. I was just like, oh, no, this is going to be annoying for me. Not that I couldn't do it, but I knew that they probably weren't going to know the rights associated to people with service dogs. So I sent an email, and they sent me this questionnaire that was intentionally very leading in the question of what kind. They just asked not, do you have a dog, but what kind of dog do you have, or something like that. Just so that it would lead people to not lie about if they had a dog or not. So, you know, I was very forthcoming. I said, I have a, 9-year-old female yellow lab. She is a guide dog. So, according to the ADA, and I'll get into this more later, but there are only 2 questions you can ask a service dog handler. You cannot ask them, like, what's their disability or any personal information like that. But you can ask, is that dog required because of a disability? And then what tasks is the dog trained to perform to help you with your disability? So those are the only things. And I volunteered that information in this email. I knew, I know my rights. And I was like, she is required because of a disability, and she's trained to guide me around obstacles. And so then I answered the rest of their questions. And of course they were like, well, I'm sorry, we can't allow you to have a home baking license if you have a dog. And I was just so triggered by this because this has happened often.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, and so like I was really upset. Like, I was just angry because I'm like, why do I have to do this again?
Yes. Just take so much extra work and time.
It's so much. I cried like angry tears.
Yes, understandably so.
It's just, everything is harder, and like service, guide dogs, like, they do great work. And also Romana's really good. Like, people don't know that because there are a lot of people who pass off their pets as service dogs. Yeah. But like, Romana's kind of incredible, and she's also trained. And I even said this, like, she's trained not to go in the kitchen.
Right, and she doesn't.
I have a special command I say to her that is, get out of the kitchen.
Yes, it's very special.
And she knows exactly where the kind of the border is.
Yes,
between the kitchen and the other place.
I've witnessed it. It's
she crazy, and she's so good about it. Like, she really doesn't go in. Her food isn't in. Like, she doesn't eat her meals in there. So, anyway, I had to pull up the ADA online, and I had to copy and paste, and I found exactly the section that said that, yes, regardless of what the state's policies are about food safety, it is allowed to have a service dog in places like a restaurant where ordinarily dogs would not be permitted. So I copied and pasted that, and I don't think they expected this, so they were like, oh, let me send this to my supervisor. And then supervisor was like, he was mistaken. You're fine. Don't worry about it.
Oh, my gosh. The supervisor's scared.
Oh, I know, right?
Yeah. Wow. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, it's too much. It's just every time it happens, you're like, no. Oh, flinch.
My last small one before we get to the big juicy ones is not, I wouldn't call it's actually not really a discrimination story, but it's going to be a good lead-in to my big story.
Ew.
I was in therapy once.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I was in therapy once. This is terrible.
Oh, this is awful.
I was about to move to New York. A lot of these have to do with New York for some whatever reason. I was about to move, and she was asking me.
I guess like it was a very like independent.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, right. I had a lot of friends in New York already at the time, so she was asking me like, "What are you gonna do when you get there? What do your friends do up there?" And I said, "Oh, a lot of different things." I said, "A lot of my friends are nannies, and also actors on the side and whatnot, And she said, hold on, I always want to think of the exact quote so that I'm never paraphrasing because I think it's important. She said, well, you can't be a nanny because no one's going to trust you with their kid if they know that you're blind, and if you don't tell them, you're lying.
Are you? Oh my god! I see. I've heard this story, and every time I hear it, I'm like, I am speechless. A therapist, guys.
A therapist, and I think she was just trying to be like tough love, like real with me. But that was terrible to say, and it leads into why this next story was so triggering for me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no one's ever going to trust you with their kids. So
I'm absolutely horrified on your behalf.
That's what she told me. Thank you. I was about like 23 at the time.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Especially a good formative time to hear that, too.
Right.
Where a lot of 23-year-olds are even parents. So, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say that I wasn't like 15 or something. You know what I mean? Like, I was like fully out of college, like adulting,
Yeah.
So,
right. You weren't trying to like babysit, right? Like.
No. Right.
And even then, you probably could
And I did not end up being a nanny, and that wasn't even what I wanted to do. I was just telling her what some of my friends were doing, so she really didn't even need to come in with that comment in the first place. I didn't tell her, like, I didn't even say, like, I'm planning to nanny. I was just telling her, well,
in the moment. Because, like, I think what's difficult is in the moment to know what even to do.
I did not say anything. I did not stand up for myself.
Yeah.
I just kind of took it. I was like, oh. Okay.
It's so
because she was an adult
hard.
And I was she was like
hard.
a good bit older
and you were
than
going
me.
to her for therapy, like you were expecting a trustworthy person.
And overall she did help me in some ways, but that was just a bad.
That's really damaging though. I mean, like,
it is.
And I don't say that to put you on the spot at all. I also want people to know that, like, when these things happen, it is really difficult to know what to do. I think like you it really gets you in fight or flight, and
or
freeze, fight or flight or freeze. And I feel like a lot of the times I grow like earlier in my 20s, I've said it before, I was like kind of feral, especially about service dog stuff.
Yeah, when
I first got Romana, and I was like really kind of a little bit aggressive about it, but I think now I would rather flight. I would rather just vacate the situation as quickly as possible, because I just don't want to deal with that again and anymore.
And I feel like I've like trended the other way a little bit, where like I used to just be flight or like freeze, and now I fight a little more, but like it's because I was flighting too much and you were fighting too much. So we're trying to like even out where we're coming from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're going in opposite directions, but we're trying to meet in the middle somewhere, I think.
For sure. I know, right? We're meeting in the middle. We're trying to give a balanced reaction.
Yes.
It is so difficult though when you're on the spot and it just happens. And
I think like naturally though, your reaction is more fight and mine is more flight naturally. So we're having to work at doing the other way sometimes, or like meeting in the middle, like I said. Yeah. So.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of service dog. Okay, so this is an issue. Okay, I'm going to talk about rideshare denials. This is an issue that absolutely plagues the service dog community.
Oh, it's certainly, yes.
I've mentioned it before, but I've never really talked about rideshare denials. So I'll share like a few stories, but some background, right? So, when someone is driving for a rideshare company like Uber or Lyft, for example, their car is now part of their employment. meaning if they're using their car to basically taxi people, their personal car is now public space. So that's important to know, right?
Yep.
According to the ADA, you cannot ask someone with a service dog to not be in a public space unless the dog is doing something that it shouldn't be, like having an accident, acting out, being a nuisance in any way. Like, if someone claims their dog's a service dog and they're being obnoxious or inappropriate, you can ask them to leave, even if they are like a legitimately trained service dog. But you can't ask, even including, and this kind of blows people's minds, and I do feel a little bit bad about it because I feel like I put people in an awkward position, but including people who have allergies to dogs.
Right. And also you might say this too, I don't want to butt into your story, but
please.
when these drivers apply for the job at Uber, they have to agree to take dogs, service dogs in their car. So even if they are allergic, this might not be the job for them if they have to agree to that under Uber's guidelines.
And and like the times that they're going to be transporting a service dog are probably going to be few and far between.
Yeah.
But they need to know that it's a possibility. And if they are highly allergic, they probably shouldn't do it at all.
Yeah.
But c'est la vie. So anyway, I, as a service dog handler, I'm not required to disclose that I have a service dog with me. Because it could get someone to preemptively cancel your ride. Yeah. Now, I will say going forward, when I have a successor dog, I might actually start doing this just because this is a self-protection measure. Just because Uber and Lyft both now have implemented a new service that they call like Uber Pet or Lyft Pet, where if someone wants to take their pet somewhere, you spend a little bit more money, but it's basically a dog-friendly car. This is really confusing to rideshare drivers. Even before this was implemented, I was getting rideshare denials with Romana, but like especially now, it's so much worse. Where people are like, well, you should have ordered an Uber Pet. I'm like, I'm not legally required to pay more to transport my service dog because she's not a pet.
She's not a pet.
I'm not taking her somewhere purely for my own enjoyment. I'm taking her somewhere because she's helping me.
Yeah. She's an aid.
But, like, people don't want to hear it. So usually what happens when a rideshare denial happens is driver pulls up, they see dog, and for whatever reason, they either don't like dogs, are afraid of dogs, are allergic to dogs. And a lot of times what's happened is, like, people will, like, roll down the window and be like, no, sorry, I don't take dogs. And so I have to just kind of hold it back a little bit. And I'm like, listen, she's a service dog. You are legally required, according to the ADA, to take her. She's a really good dog. You won't even know she's here. But if you don't take us, I'm running late, which is usually the case because I'm myself. But also, generally, if they cancel your ride and you have to find someone else, you will be late.
Yeah, of
even
course.
if you were on time.
Right.
Like,
it's
gonna be
hard
late
enough planning out times for rideshare anyway. Like, you're gonna either be really late or really early a lot of the time.
Exactly.
So.
It's like, I'm gonna be late if you cancel my ride. And if you cancel my ride, I have to report you and you will get suspended from the platform if you get, like, after I report you. So sometimes this works. I try to be really calm about it because it usually just makes me immediately really upset and really, like, it's almost humiliating because I feel like less than a person.
Yes.
And also, I know my dog is incredible, and I bet, people have had bad experiences with dogs, and I'm sad for that, but I feel also defensive of my dog. I'm like, no, you don't understand this dog. You want this dog in your car. I mean,
yeah, of course.
But it's really hard. I've had so many different rideshare denials. There was the one where I was standing in the rain. There was the one in New York City where the driver swore at me and he said, "Go ahead and report me." And there was the one with you when we were in Pittsburgh. Yep. I think we told the story on our recap of Pittsburgh a couple years ago, but Casey was actively holding the door handle of I was literally opening
the door. Yeah.
And they locked the door, and while she was still holding on, they drove away. Like,
yeah.
It's so much like emotional like frustration and time out of my day to now. I try to take a screenshot of whenever something like this happens, and then I have to call Lyft and report.
Yeah, you have to report it. It takes time out of your day. It takes energy. It's like so such much. A hassle.
And usually, like the driver just gets like a partial suspension. They look into it. They get a little slap on the wrist, and they go back on their merry way driving Lyfts. But actually, this one, I don't know if I told you this one, and I'll move on because I could talk about this forever. I have talked about I take mostly rides from this service that's mostly for people with disabilities, so rideshare denials don't really happen there, which is fantastic. Sometimes, if there are no drivers available on the user platform to be able to pick you up, they'll send a Lyft to you. So one time that happened, they sent me a Lyft. I was there with Romana, and the driver, like, he didn't want to take us. I begged and gave my little speech, and he reluctantly did. Then after I got out of the car, rated me 1 star. And I was like, no, you cannot do that. And so I complained to Lyft, and I thought it was done. The same guy actually ended up picking me up another time. And I thought that usually when that happens, they block you from ever being able to get picked up from that person again. But somehow, I think when I just asked for a Lyft directly instead of one given to me through Userve, I was still given the same driver. And I was like, this is like, it was awful because I knew that this guy hated me for having a service dog. And I had to sit in his car a second time. And I didn't really know because these happened like a month or so apart. And I was like, this is really familiar to me. Why is this really familiar to me? And it's because then he also rated me 1 star again.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
It was bad. It was bad. Yeah, GDB, Guide Dogs for the Blind, did a study about the impact of rideshare denials on like economic, emotional, whatever.
Yeah.
It's really good. I'll put a link to it in the show notes, but...
And like I always say, half the time, blind people are the people that need rideshare the most because we can't drive.
Well, like, I rely on rideshare to get around. Yeah,
literally. So that's even worse. And it is emotionally scarring. It really is. Oh, my gosh. So now we can get to our 2 last juicy stories. These are the juice. And you know, like... I think if sharing all these little stories before sharing the big last ones, if they prove anything, it's that every time something happens, it's especially triggering because a bunch of little things have happened prior. And we didn't even tell half of the stories that we have. So when something happens, we already have an open wound, as Cassandra has said before. And it's like barely healing up, and then another thing happens and it just opens it again. So, okay, I'll try to make this story not too long, but these are kind of our longer stories.
You don't have to do that, though.
So
that's kind of what this segment is.
This story I have only told to a very, very close family and friends. I have not shared this publicly ever until now, and I won't be sharing it publicly anywhere else, but I think it's important to share on a platform like this, and I hope somebody listening can... You know, I hope you don't relate, but if you do, maybe that you can find some, you know, solace in that, I guess. So, I decided a while back that I wanted to try to foster a child. Yay. And this was something I thought a lot about. took a lot of time thinking about it, praying about it. And I'm the kind of person, when I want to do something, I learn every single thing about that thing. So I like researched a ton. I knew everything about it. And I came to the conclusion that I wanted to do something called respite care, which is basically short-term fostering. Like, you take foster kids who are already in a foster family. When that family is busy or traveling, you take them for like a weekend, maybe a week. Sometimes it's if the family needs a break. So this is short-term, and it would be just, me taking in one child at a time for a few days. I have a few friends that do this. I actually have a few friends that are full-time foster parents who are visually impaired and don't drive. Two people I know, in fact. So that's why I was kind of like, okay, maybe I can do this. I'm good with kids. I love kids. I'm responsible. I have an extra bedroom. I have the space. I have the ability. I was like, I work from home. My schedule's flexible. I was like, this is the time, So I contacted the state about it and talked to this woman on the phone. She was super lovely, super nice. She was asking me questions, and she asked, do you have reliable transportation? And I answered yes, because I do. I have a really good support system. I have a great family that lives close by. I have great friends. I have great people at church who are willing to help me. And I have Uber and Lyft as well. And I was planning to just take older kids that I could just do like a booster seat for, or wouldn't even need a seat. I wasn't planning on dealing with car seats at all, in any way. So, because I had thought this through. People think we don't think these things through. Obviously I had. So the lady said, do you have reliable transportation? I said, yes. I said, actually, I have an eye condition that prevents me from driving, and I explained to her, I have a great support system. I use Uber and Lyft. And I said, I will get the kid where they need to go, and I will always be in the car with them. I will never just put a kid in a car with someone. I'll be there, I'm just not the one physically touching the wheel. Oh no. Oh, God forbid.
Right.
Okay. So, you can tell where this is going. So just for some more, just to really set the scene, I also took an online class. You have to take a lot of hours of classes. Took an online class that night after talking on the phone to that woman. They basically were telling, what you need to have as a foster parent. And it said, at least one of the adults in the house needs to know how to read. So this is the bar,
it's on the floor.
It's on the floor. And, I'm just saying that to really set the scene for you. I have a degree. I'm not saying I'm better than anybody, but I am capable.
You're overqualified, if you will.
Well, in some ways, yes. So a lot of people are just in it for the money, unfortunately, and that's the sad world we live in. A lot of foster parents are abusive, and a lot of them are really, really wonderful, and you just never really know. But that's just the world we live in. It's unfortunate, and that's the truth. So took the class. We had to do a little quiz after the class. I got 100% because I had already been studying about the foster system. I knew everything about it. Literally, if you need to foster a child, ask me anything. I'm like an encyclopedia now about the foster system. So they said, okay, we want to meet with you in 3 days. And you have to have every information from your entire life. They said, we want your social security, your birth certificate, your ID, your pet's vaccination records. We want your income. We want pay stubs. We want your home insurance, home insurance. We want your car insurance, which I don't have. And we want literally every single thing about your entire life, and do it in 3 days. So I was like, I'm going to do it, because when you're disabled, you feel this need to be perfect. Because if you slip up in one area, they're like, oh, it's because she's blind. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to be perfect. Yes. I was like, I'm going to have all the stuff.
You have to work 7 times harder in order to be taken a little bit more seriously.
It's so true.
It's exhausting.
So I had every single piece of paper they asked for, every single thing updated. I dressed business casual. I was looking fly, okay? I was looking mature, okay? Because sometimes I don't. I was ready, dressed to impress. And I was nervous, obviously about discrimination, but also just about the whole thing. And so I already had all this nervous energy walking into this meeting, right? I was feeling nervous, but I'd already told them on the phone I couldn't drive. And they said, okay, so whatever. I sit down, I have all my papers, and the second my butt touches the chair, literally. And this was all the way downtown. So I was kind of going a far way out of my way too on a work day. The lady says, so you can't drive at all? And I said, no. And she asked again. No, so you can't, like, at all? And I was like, no. And I think what she wanted to do was, like, if I had said yes, even, like, in a little way, she could have just said, yeah. You know what I mean? I think, like, for her papers or whatever.
Right.
And she was like, well, I hate to have made you come all this way, but they just told me right before you came in here that if you can't drive, you can't do this. And I, like, started tearing up. I wasn't full crying at this point, like, tearing, you know, a bit. And I was like, even if I'm going to have reliable transportation, even if I'm going to always be in the car with the child, even if I'm going to get them where they need to go no matter what, like, I will get them where they need to go. That's the thing, Cass. I'm like, I always get where I need to go. I'm at this meeting right now. Am I not? Like, I'm at this meeting early. Like, I'm here. Anyway, and she was like, hold on, let me call somebody. She goes out to call somebody. I'm like kind of sobbing at this point. Like, I have this problem where, like, once I start crying, do you have that where, like, you don't stop once you start? I have that problem. I'm like, it's a floodgate.
Yeah. Like, if it falls, like I can stop crying if it hasn't fallen. You know what I mean? But
I couldn't. I couldn't stop at this point. I was done. So she comes in after talking on the phone and she's like, okay, we can waive it. And usually the lady doesn't let us waive it. So this is a big deal.
Wow. Oh my gosh, they're doing something special just for you.
Oh my God, that's so nice. She goes, we can waive it, but you're going to have to put down 5 people's name and information that can drive for you. And it was either 3 or 4 of them had to be non-family members.
That is
which
so
is
many.
Strange. And she said they all have to come in and get fingerprinted. And all this stuff. It was just a lot.
I don't think that I have 3 non-family members that I could ask for reliable transportation.
Right. And I was like, oh, okay. It was just like a lot. And so I was like, I have to take my moment. I have to, like, stand up for myself. And I also have to use the D word, discrimination, to scare the pants off of these people because they know this is not legal.
This is not right.
It's not legal. And in fact, on the website, like the government website, it says, we do not discriminate against people with disabilities. You can foster if you have a disability. They say that. Okay. They do.
They say
I've read all about it.
it.
Yeah, I've read all about it. They definitely say that. So I said, hey, and this is what my exact words were, I can't drive due to an eye condition. And my biggest fear coming in here was discrimination. And now it has happened. And she was like, no, it's okay. We were able to waive it. It's okay now. It's okay.
It's okay now. Okay. I can't undo what has been done. But it's okay the damage, now because
the damage had truly been
on
done. The damage had truly been done. I was literally sobbing as I was filling out and this whole meeting was like 45 minutes because I still decided to stay and like fill out all the paperwork because she gave me a mountain of paperwork. And then she leaves the room again, and at this point I'm texting Cass and I'm like, Cass, I'm literally sitting here sobbing as I'm filling out this paperwork, like, no, this is not happening. And I like couldn't really stop crying. I kind of cried on and off for the rest of the whole time, and not to be honest with you, like it was bad.
I mean,
and I
awful.
think because I had a lot of pent-up anxiety going in there about this very thing happening. And as it was happening, it was almost like, is this a nightmare? Like,
no, yeah.
Felt like it was like not happening.
Surrealness.
Yes.
Ugh.
And it's like, I felt like it was not happening. And also as it was happening, I thought, this is another one of those moments that'll live in my head forever. Like it is
you know that you're like here. Getting permanently scarred now.
Right. Literally, I was actively getting permanently scarred. And just like when my therapist said something 10 years ago, it stayed in my head. I was like, this is now one of those moments that's staying in my head, actively scarring. And it is slightly traumatic because of all the stuff we have been through in the past of like people not believing that we can do things and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm trying to help my community. I'm trying to help a child, and I would be damn good at it. I'm sorry to, like, and you are pushing away someone who is loving and responsible, who's not in it for the money, who's in it for the kids, and it's really unfortunate. So I went home, and I ended up texting the lady and saying, hey, I basically pulled out of it for the time being. And she said, can I ask why? And I said, yes. And I told her it was because I was so put off by the fact that the second I sat down, they told me I can't do it if I can't drive. And I was like, I know you were able to waive it, but it was very upsetting and jarring and the damage had been done.
Well, the alternative is an incredibly tall order.
Right.
You're swapping something that most people take for granted for, I don't think if anyone... Say, like, someone's car was in the shop, or it got totaled or something. do they have 3 non-family members that they could get reliable transportation from? I don't think so. I don't know that that's a thing that a lot of people have readily. So also, it's an impossible task what you were given.
I was also literally trying to do, let me remind everyone, I was literally trying to do respite care, which is typically like a weekend. I wasn't even going to keep the kid full-time long-term. It was going to be like a weekend thing where we could like walk to the park and stuff. It wasn't even like, you know, and I'll get them where they need to go and I get myself where I need to go and it's fine. And so like, I think this brings back a lot of fears I've always had. I've always had a fear of like marrying someone and having a kid and then like, God forbid, getting a divorce and then like having trouble with custody because of my vision. Yeah. Like that's like a terrifying, like it makes me like choked up to even say it aloud. Like that is a terrifying thought. And these kind of things like bring all those fears about parenting and like my inability to parent. And that is my deepest wound, is when someone argues my ability to parent, because I know I'm good with kids and it is like my deepest wound. So don't go there with me. Okay. Don't go there.
It's so hard. I mean, what you were just saying about, you know, that hypothetical, right, of custody over a kid. I went to an NFB convention many years ago, and that was something that a lot of women were talking about as a horrible injustice that has happened a lot of custody courts being reluctant to grant custody for blind parents. No. And like,
I could cry.
But it's why we need organizations like the NFB to fight on our behalf, because honestly, if we alone is not how we survive these things, because it is so hard to mount that yourself after getting this massive blow to your person.
Yes, and then you're terrified for it to ever happen again. Then you're so wounded from it.
You're always like, and then people wonder why we're on the defensive, right?
Yes.
Like, it's because this happens so often that we're just like cagey about it. And if you bring it up, now I'm going to get kind of mad because I'm preparing for the blow. But it's so hard to leave those defenses down in order to, you know, be a person.
Yes, and quite frankly, this is very offensive to all of our blind friends who are parents and who are great parents. And like, do they think they shouldn't be a parent? I guess they probably do, because they're ignorant.
Oh no!
Oh no! You're not touching your hands are not touching the wheel of the car that you're going to be in with the kid. Oh no! Like, oh no! You know. So that's my story. Very personal. When Casey
told me that, like, she sent me a voice memo after it happened. Like, I felt physically sick the rest of the day because
I cried all day. Like, I mean, I was on the couch just crying all day
frankly.
long.
Like,
I did. I literally cried all day. Yeah.
It's
I had to get that out.
So awful. Like, I hate how relatable that feeling is. And that's not even a specific experience that I have had, but it's just, it really feels like the rug is swept out from underneath you.
Well, I knew you'd get it. Even though you don't get the exact experience, I knew you'd get it. Like, because you have other experiences that I haven't had and vice versa. Like the one you're going to share. Like the one you're about to share.
Oh my gosh.
So something I have not been through, but can also feel for you for.
Oh my gosh. So this happened many years ago. Yours was rather recent, like a month or two ago. Mine happened in 2017. So it's been time. So I'm finishing out my spring of my sophomore year of college. Yeah. So it's almost the end of the school year, and I had an internship in downtown Columbus. So I was planning to stay. I was also going to be doing this like summer program. It was kind of a part-time summer program through my college church, and I was trying to find sublet housing, right? That's something really common that you would do in college for the summer. I knew a lot of people that were either looking for sublets or trying to sublet somewhere. Anyway, so I had these friends at the time from my college church, and they were going to be living in this house. And they told me, hey, we have a sublet for the summer. They knew I was looking for a place. So I, through one of the girls that was living in the house, was asking about, when I could move in and talking. So for a while, I didn't talk directly to the landlady of this home, but instead it was through one of the girls that already lived there. That was basically the girl I was going to sublet from.
Okay. Yeah.
And so it started out fine, and it's maybe a week or maybe 4 or 5 days from when I had to move out of where I was living during the school year. So I had a lot of my stuff packed. And suddenly I start getting these emails forwarded from the girl to the landlady. She was kind of the middle girl. So I disclose like, hey, okay, me and my service dog will be living here. How much would the sublet be? And this landlady immediately told me that she would charge me an extra $1,000 in order to sublet this place with my dog, because she does not allow pets.
Insane.
And so this was less than a year from when I had gotten Romana. I got Romana in like August of 16.
Yes.
And I almost didn't know what to do. Like,
sure,
I'd already been rideshare denied at this point, but I didn't know what to do.
You were still very green.
Yeah, very much so. And I was like, oh, wait. But I knew that was not legal.
Right. You're like, that's not right.
I knew that one of, like I was saying earlier, one of the things with the ADA is you cannot charge someone who has a service dog an undue amount of money that you wouldn't charge someone who didn't have a service dog. Of course. And so then I was really mad and confused, and I replied back, I was like, well, no, actually, I don't have to do that. And I copied and pasted parts of the ADA, and she was saying, well, if you're not going to pay the extra money, you can't live here.
Ugh. And you were like crunched for time to find somewhere to live.
I was like 3 days from move out at that point between those emails.
Yeah, this is not just like a silly little thing. Like, you didn't have anywhere to live. Like,
I was like, I'm like, oh my gosh, am I going to be homeless? Like where am I going to live when I start my new job?
Yeah, because you had to be close to your job, and like you had to find, it's just
right. And I was trying to live with people that I like trusted, right?
Yeah, of course.
And so
you don't want to just live anywhere, like,
right. It was really crazy, but kind of at the last minute, like maybe 2 days before I had to move out, literally God provided someone who needed a sublet, and the location ended up being way more convenient than the original place. It wasn't with as many people. It was like right across the street from where I needed to be in the evenings, and I like a straight shot bus. It was great.
Great.
But like, I moved in and I put that behind me, but I just like couldn't get it out of my head, and I knew that it wasn't okay. I'm glad I had a place to live, but it was awful, and I was so stressed. And I felt so gross. Like, I felt, I'm literally being, this is true discrimination. Like, I'm literally being denied access to a normal thing just because I have a guide dog who is, really actively working at this point, right?
Yes, and if these things are just, if we don't speak up for ourselves, this is going to keep happening. We have to break the cycle. Like, this is going to keep happening to other people,
Yeah. It's And so after that happened, I started trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to report this? Because this is super illegal. And I did some research, and I ended up going through the Ohio Civil Rights Commission, and I reported this discrimination. And it took some time for that to process. I detailed my whole situation and how just awful it was to be first charged a lot of money and then like second just not allowed at all, and and how difficult that was, especially with the crunch time that I had. And it was like late July that they said, okay, so we're gonna have a mediation meeting. And what that means is it's not like a court case. It's like a court case, basically. Like, it's the step you would take, and then if that didn't work, you would go to court.
Okay. Yeah.
But you're basically in a room with a trained mediator, and everyone kind of shares their side of the story, and you aren't supposed to talk to each other. You're only supposed to talk to the mediator, and they can field what's going on.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was super grateful for a few things, though. Number one, I just mentioned that NFB convention. I was at that NFB convention like a week before I was supposed to do this mediation. And I was telling people, like, guys, I'm gonna go and try and demand justice for this. And they were like,
it's nothing like one of those conferences to get you amped up to do it. Like,
right.
If I need to be amped up to do it, all I need to do is go to one of those and be like, come back home.
Literally. And they were like, you better take her down. And I was like, okay, I'll try. So I also called and reached out to GDB, and I was like, hey, this is the situation I'm in. Is there anyone who can advise me? And they did connect me to someone in my area who had been through a similar situation, and that was incredibly helpful. He himself was a lawyer and a guide dog user. And I chatted with him on the phone, like, I want to say the day before this happened. And he was like, you got to bring everything.
Yeah.
Be really calm about it and explain exactly what happened. But bring everything, bring like the ADA, bring all the evidence. And I did. Yeah. I printed at work a copy of the ADA. I went through and I highlighted the relevant parts about service dogs. The fun thing about this whole thing was that everything happened over email, so I printed all of the incriminating emails.
She got those receipts, baby.
Right? And so I took, it was just me and my dog. We went to this mediation meeting.
Hilarious.
And this landlady shows up with a whole attorney. I didn't know that.
You've told me
this you could bring legal representation.
It makes me laugh every time that she actually had the balls.
She had a whole attorney.
She had the audacity.
It's amazing because also this truly, like, also since it's been so many years, it truly felt like something out of a sitcom.
Yes.
Because I'm like, how old was I at the time? I'm like 20 years old. And I have a dog and some highlighted copy of the ADA, and then like this older woman with her attorney man, and I'm like, okay, so here are the emails, and the attorney had never seen them before.
Oh my god.
It was so, and I was reading off things that were said in the emails, and at one point the attorney was like, can I see those?
Uh-huh.
And it was so wild. And so really what I went in for this mediation meeting for, like, my goal with this was to get justice by making this landlady attend some classes about discrimination, because I didn't want this to happen to another service dog handler. Like, ultimately, I just wanted her to get educated.
Yeah.
But there was like a financial settlement to it too, and I feel like it was fair. They really tried to lowball me, but it was fair for the anxiety that I had to endure for not having a place to live before I was going to get kicked out. Like,
and there was no reason to not give you a place to live. It was discrimination. So yeah,
it
I'm
was
glad
wild.
you fought
Like
it.
they were coming out with the most bottom of the barrel excuses.
Oh,
why
I'm sure they were.
She was saying what she did. That she was afraid. I had disclosed my vision impairment, and she was afraid that I wasn't able to go upstairs. Well, she never asked me that.
Oh, this poor landlady.
I know.
She doesn't know if you.
They
you know,
even
what?
brought a photo.
Also, what
of
does that have to do with anything?
I know.
You can't live somewhere if you can't go up the stairs.
Exactly. Like,
I mean, you can, but like, what
and
does
they
that have to do
never.
with
And
anything?
this was never mentioned in any of the emails. It was just total
I mean, that was
BS.
her literally pulling out of her behind.
Yeah, and then another thing, they brought like a picture. This is what makes it feel like a sitcom, because it doesn't make any sense.
The whole thing does sound like I see it in my head as a sitcom. Like,
they brought a picture of a tenant who had a dog, and the entire purpose of it was, well, she's let people sublet with dogs before, so it's okay.
No. That is unreal. It's like literally from a comedy.
It was I didn't even know what to do, and it was just me, and it was like, well, that's not entirely relevant.
No, it's not relevant at all, in fact.
But it was so nerve-wracking, but I'm really, really glad that we did that. I say we because Romana was a crucial part of this, by sleeping under the table very quietly and good.
Oh, yes. She was doing her work.
She was doing her work, but it was, getting actual justice for something that you are getting discriminated against is really surreal, because it rarely ever happens.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's unfortunate for the times and the people that it doesn't happen for. And even when it should happen. But
absolutely.
I am hopefully that lady learned her lesson.
I hope so.
Because that was not fair what she put you through.
I mean, I don't wish bad on her, but I do wish that maybe she weren't a landowner. Maybe maybe don't rent to people if you don't know what their rights are. But,
right. Yeah.
But maybe she learned with the required civil rights courses that she had to take as part of her settlement.
I would hope so. I sure hope so. Oh my gosh.
That's crazy. But I mean, hey, when Romana retired and I was thinking of all the things we did together, I was like, well, we sued someone.
Yeah, pretty big milestone.
For discrimination.
Pretty big milestone, if you ask me. Yeah, that's gonna bond you together,
No kidding. Yeah, I took a little selfie of us like after the fact.
Oh my gosh.
And just like she was like licking my face, and I was grinning from ear to ear because we won, and it was crazy.
You won. Yeah. Wow.
I hope that I don't have to sue someone with guide dog number 2.
I would hope not. No. But
or
listen, after this episode, who knows? That's actually what I was saying to you when we were talking privately about a lot of this. I was like, why does it surprise us every time? Like, every time,
always a surprise.
It's always a surprise. Every time it happens, you're like, wait, is this happening? And then you're like, why wouldn't I think this would happen? This happens all the time. But like, while it's happening, it's just still a shock every time. And that's why sometimes in the moment we do freeze, because you're never ready. Like, you always think you're ready and you're never ready.
And and what is the alternative? Like, being ready all the time meaning you're on the defensive all the time.
Yeah, or just really stressed.
Or always so anxious. Like, that's not a way to live.
No.
No one can live like that, or they won't have any friends.
That's true. That's true. It's true.
And so, in favor of trying to be vulnerable and open and, ready to try and accept connection, we also have to be ready, like, and it will always catch us by surprise, to accept discrimination. And it's really painful that is part of what it is to live as people with disabilities.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are definitely a lot of hurtful comments and things that happen in our lives that wouldn't be necessarily considered discrimination. But I think
we did talk about those recently.
Right. I think these last two stories especially, but even a lot of the stories we shared before them are like 100% legal discrimination. Like, this is discrimination. Like, for sure. No way around it. It literally is.
Yeah. You can't call it anything else.
No. Because it literally is what it is. And yeah, it's unfortunate, and it is definitely a wound that'll keep getting open, I'm sure, until we die. But
and it's sad that we have to know that and just live that way. But that is, I mean, it would be delusional to live any other way. But
yeah,
I'm also just, I want to say, like, I'm really glad that you shared your story, especially because it was so recent. I wanted to say after it happened, like, hey, I guess you could share this on the pod, but because it was so personal for some of your personal goals and hopes and especially vulnerabilities, I was really excited and surprised that you wanted to share it on the pod, because I feel like it's a story worth sharing, but only if you were comfortable.
I was surprised I wanted to share it on the pod, because this is like definitely not something I would like post about on Facebook or something, like, personally. I just would not. I've hardly even told that many people, like I said, but I think this platform that we have, and it's so special to have a platform like this. And if I'm going to share something like that anywhere, it has to be here. It has to be for the people that it will impact, hopefully. And yeah, like, you know, I feel comfortable with our listeners. You know, I feel comfortable getting vulnerable because this feels like a safe spot on the internet. And, you know, we do appreciate. Yeah, we appreciate.
We have some really great listeners.
Yeah, we really do. We have some of you that are just always there for us. We're so grateful.
Really appreciate it, you guys. But it's hard, and to encourage those of you that will experience discrimination, like, I think it helps to know that you're not the only person experiencing this in a vacuum. It is infuriating to think about it happening all the time. Yeah. To so many people, and getting denied exclusively based on your disability, your inability to drive, having a service dog that's actually doing good work for you, you know, like, it's infuriating, but if you can fight it, like, you should try to, but there's also no judgment for not doing it, because it's also painful and
tiring.
Hard.
Yep, you got to pick every single time is different, and every single time you have to choose your battles, and you know, all of that. But that's why I think that's also why it's important for us to share these stories, like you said, so they'll know they're not alone. If any of you are going through it, that you'll know you're not alone, like, you know, because it does cushion the blow a little, at least, to know that it's not just happening to you and you feel so alone in the world and all of that. Like,
well, and thinking that, like, if I shared this with someone, no one would understand.
Well,
I mean, you know?
Yeah, I know we're kind of wrapping up here, but real quick, I'll say, like, when I shared the foster care story with people, you know, it's kind of scary to share that story with able-bodied people, because I'm always afraid that in the back of their mind, they're like, maybe, they're like agreeing. They're like, yeah, well, maybe you shouldn't foster if you can't drive. You know, that's what, I'm always afraid that's what they're thinking. And so to be able to talk to you about it, you're the only person that I know is not thinking that, you know, like,
no, not at all.
And I'm sure, to be fair, I'm sure a lot of my friends are not thinking that, and a lot of them were extremely angry and upset for me, and they were very, like, you know, they were very upset for me, and they believe that I would be a good foster parent. So I'm not saying that, but I don't have to worry about the, like, oh, what if in the back of their mind, you know, with you, I don't have to worry about that. I'm not like, oh, what if in the back of her mind she, you know, is thinking maybe they're right or whatever, because that's the society we live in.
Man.
Same wounds. I mean, that's the society we live in, is people don't know what people with disabilities are capable of, nor do they wish to learn. They don't even wish to learn.
Because they don't know that they can ask in a way that is respectful, because, you know, I don't want to share even more than you want to, but, you know, you've pursued other options and have had, not nearly to the same degree, but just even uncomfortable questions about the nature of your visual impairment. It's just like, people don't know what's appropriate.
Right. Right, they don't. They just, like, ask
they don't
way
know,
too much.
Yeah, you can ask about your functional limitations. What is it that you have difficulty doing or have to do in an alternate way? But you can't ask about people's diagnoses or medical, you
their
can't
personal
do
medical
that.
information. Like this, you cannot just ask about people's personal medical info. Like that is not.
So many people don't know that because no one is taught this because
it feels
disability
so
exists in a vacuum, and it feels. It's really disheartening to think about. And then
if you don't answer their questions, it makes it look like you're hiding something, you know, like if you don't want to answer,
because
it's like,
legally you don't have to.
Legally you don't have to. Right. It's true.
But then people are suspicious. So
right. I know, because if you act defensive and say I'm not answering that, then it makes it look like it's even a bigger deal than it is. It's a whole thing. It's because really there's no.
And also, honestly, all of these stories pretty much involve us having to be the bigger person and not, just absolutely losing it over something completely justifiable and this happens with any discrimination, right? The person getting discriminated against is always expected to be the one to handle it with grace. And yes. And that is a tall order, but we're going to keep trying.
Yes, and I mean, if you're comparing my last story, the Foster story, to the Disneyland story, I was telling Cass, I was like, with the Foster story, I'm having to prove to them that I'm capable despite my disability. Yeah. With the Disneyland thing, I'm having to prove to them that I'm disabled enough to qualify for service. It's like,
there's literally no winning.
There's no winning because one way or the other, you're screwed. Question? Yeah. Maybe. Right. Love that. That's a great way to end this episode, don't you think? One way or another, you're screwed. Put that on a shirt, like Casey Greer.
Sell some more merch with just that merch. Quote.
One way or another, we're screwed. No. Life is fine. We are fine. We will keep trucking and fighting, and we will look back to the past of all the amazing disability advocates. When things like this happen, I think of Judy Heumann. I think of those stand pioneers. On their shoulders. Yes. Well, Judy Heumann was told she couldn't be a teacher because she was disabled. She can't, and I thought of that. I'm like, you can't take care of kids. You can't, whatever. And she fought. And because she fought, we have the ADA. We have what we have now. And we have the, 504 plan and all the things. So... Yeah, we gotta keep fighting.
Gotta keep fighting as much as we can and are able to, but we're so grateful for you guys. Thanks for listening.
Yes, and we're thankful to Ira. Be sure to check them out.
Yes, Ira is awesome.
Yes, they're
we'll
awesome.
See you in 2 weeks.
Bye.